Hello, friends. This is Events Demystified brought to you by Fun Events, and I'm your host, Anca. On the show with me today, I have Marisa Cali. She is a virtual event producer from San Diego, another girl live streamer. Yay! And I get to talk to her, have a conversation, interview her. I mean, whatever you can think of in terms of what people on podcasts really do. And it's such a joy to have her on the podcast with me today. But before I bring her in, I just want to give you a little bit of a background on Marisa. Since 2015, she has coached business leaders on how to leverage social media to maximize their impact in the online world and use social media to elevate their personal brand. She has managed accounts in the B2B sector for over 4 years now. With the rise of live streaming and increasing demand for video content, she found a calling in remote live streaming production. And in April 2020, she launched the Live on Social Now Productions, a division of her business which blends her love of tech, project management, and creativity all in one. Marisa has had the pleasure of working with exceptional partners to execute virtual summits, exclusive fireside chats, and podcasts that build community. She also supports the advancements of women in sports and inspires her community to be present for the conversations that matter. She co-hosts a podcast that highlights one of the USL Soccer League's newest club, San Diego Loyal. Without further ado, I would love to bring Marisa in and have a conversation around all things events, streaming, and even like work-life balance, because in this crazy world of working from home, we all know what that means. We can be putting a lot of effort into working and then forgetting about ourselves. So let's bring her in and have this conversation.
It's
How
so
are
fun.
you?
I'm so happy to talk to another person that's a woman that knows the tech. And we were just kind of talking before about tech stuff before this, and I'm just over the moon. So
I am
thank
so
you.
excited, yes, to have you with me today and talk like from girl to girl, like man to man,
Yes,
like
yes,
woman. I like to call myself wow man,
yes. Wow, man. Oh, that's a good one. You
right?
should trademark it.
All the things I think of and then I forget
Right,
about.
right,
They're
right.
on episode by episode basis. So yeah, but let's talk about you. Tell
Oh,
me about how your 2020 pan out to be, and especially we'll get into the world of virtual events because, to be honest, as a fellow event producer of virtual events and solo live streaming and producing so many significant virtual events, I
mhm,
can't wait to have this conversation with you and just learn about your story and your experience working events at this new era and
mhm.
virtual and hybrid. But before we even get into this nitty gritty, I guess my easy question to you, just to kick us off, is how has 2020 been impacting you? And was there any moment where you felt like you were gonna overcome it and you felt like that sense of like new hope rising in you?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. I think even though we're in almost at the end of Q1 or we're in Q2, I don't know, where I don't know quarters, I just know days. So I still feel like we're doing a lot of reflecting on 2020. And there's a little bit of hesitancy when I talk about how my 2020 was, because I know a lot of people suffered loss of life, but also loss of their job, loss of the stability. But for me, it was probably one of the most special years that I could ever have. And it's probably just the way I look at it. I was able to do a lot of personal work just before all the lockdowns happened. And that kind of like shifted everything, not only in my personal life, but my professional life. Gave me the tools to really manage through all the stuff that happened. Like, we were navigating territory that was unknown. We didn't have a guide to help us figure out how we manage just our day to day. And I know we'll talk about that more in later on, but for business wise, luckily I have had the foundation in place in the marketing sense and making connections, going to networking events, making the right business connections through LinkedIn and stuff like that, that when this happened, I became a resource and I was becoming helpful to people that needed to figure out this online space. And it was funny because I'm like, no, I didn't take it as like, oh, well, you didn't want to work with me before. Well, you can't work with me now. But it was more so just looking at it like I'm helping people. Like, and that's what we, I think, strive to do not only as women, but like in our space, right? What we know about. And so that was really, I was able to provide help and service to people that were had questions, didn't know how to transition their whole business plan of connecting with people face to face, and now they have to do it in a virtual sense. So for my business, it's been 2020 was my best year when it comes to that, and even 2021 is turning out to be better than last year. And it's not hard for me to like talk about my success because I'm really proud of it. I've been doing this for a long time, but it's also like I just want to inspire others that they can do it too. It's not really about what you provide, it's who you are and how you look at what you provide, because everything kind of spills over from that.
And you touch on this mindset that I feel like it's so important, because if you find a sense of calling within this mindset, that now you're not just there to provide this service, but you're there to actually help people that haven't done this before. And it's kind of like your prerogative, like your calling. I can help, and I'm more than willing to help because I've done this and I know how this works. And you're doing it from that sense of like, this is something that can help you in return. And I'm not just here to help myself, right? And I feel like a lot of producers that have dwelt in the digital world, in virtual events, the ones that embrace that calling, they have done really well in 2020. And it's not to look down upon all the people struggling, because the industry has been hit really, really hard, but just to bring that sense of hope that even in the middle of adversity and hardship, there's still opportunity.
Right. Yeah, it is. You talked about mindset, and that is basically what all of my personal work has really filtered over into professional. When someone says like, well, I'm bugging them, or like I'm bothering them, see if I could work with them on a project, when it's like, if you switch that frame of mind into I'm helping them figure out what they need to do, and you tell yourself that and them, it's a whole different way of how you can collaborate and work with people. And it's been life-changing. I mean, I talk about it, I get chills sometimes because I'm like, oh my God, like this is like, I'm just bubbling over, and I want to tell everyone I'm busy doing my work, but also I want to talk about it and be here to, like, especially people like you who are in the space and understand, and we can identify with the similarities.
And it changes the conversation, I found out, because it puts a lot of us in that place of educating, right? Our clients, our future clients, even sometimes vendors and our partners that we engage with and work with. But what I've also noticed is changing that conversation, that it's not about what you don't know. It's about how we can fill in now those places with some of the knowledge that I happen to acquire or I happen to have, and not making it feel like you're not good enough. It's just making you feel like you can compensate now what you don't know, because what you don't know, you don't know until you learn it.
You don't know until you know. Yeah,
exactly. And we've all have things that we don't know, right? So and I personally also don't, I look at myself and I think of like, I never want to be the kind of person that would operate from like this mindset of scarcity. Like I never be holding information or holding things that I know can help somebody else and not share it, because I'm afraid that by sharing it now, it puts me at a disadvantage because I give out my secrets or something, you know.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always connect with people that come from the same mindset of like, let's put our brains together because two brains are better than one.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I want to touch on the point, especially putting brains together and like lack of the scarcity mindset, because I feel like that was very much my mindset in the beginning, because I was working for myself, and you're a new business owner. You don't know how do you ask people for money? Like, what is it? Don't want to talk about this with other people because they might come in and take that client from you. But once I've adopted the abundance mindset of everyone can have their cake and you can have it, and then we work together potentially in the future, which maybe I'm manifesting that right now, we'll all benefit, right? Because I might learn something from you, we might bounce new ideas off each other, and that's really kind of what I'm hoping. I'm not hoping, I have faith that it will come to fruition when I adopt that mindset.
Absolutely. Now,
Mhm.
before we get to Marisa of today, I'm curious of Marisa of years back when she was a little girl. Who inspired you growing up and why? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I actually haven't been asked this in a long time, and I try to think about it, and I don't know if it's because of the work that I've done in this very present moment living, but I just think about all the strong people in my life, my mom and my grandparents, my grandma. Those are like really big, powerful people in my life as I've grown, and they are still. My grandparents aren't around anymore, but none of them really had, except for my grandma, had her own real estate business, but none of them really had like this, the entrepreneur or business owner slash uncertainty
Yeah.
lifestyle. So I wasn't really exposed to that. So I think that's a little bit of a thing that I have to overcome just because of what I've learned when I was little now, at least, because it's like, oh, you have to be stable or you have to have this in order to be successful. But thinking back when I
A
was younger,
secure job or
yeah,
like you
nine to
have to
five. What
clock
are you
in,
doing?
clock out.
Yeah, and that's something that I have to, I'm not working through it in this moment, but like definitely has been a challenge for me as a business owner. But going back to when I was little, I just was a kid. I didn't really like, I can't think of anything where when they say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I don't remember any of that really. And I don't know if I don't know what that's about, but I think I was just being myself and a kid, right? So I didn't have this pressure of like, what do you need to be? And I think that now is what I adopt as well. Like, I'm not a kid, I'm a grown adult, but I do try to live that. I don't have, well, this is who I want to be and I'm going to idolize that person. Like the idolizing false idol type thing is not something that I really identify with because I just want to be me
Yeah.
and do what I can. So,
Exactly. To the best of your ability in this present with the opportunity given at hand. And I can
mhm,
certainly identify with that and connect with that because I
mhm,
remember being a kid as well. I mean, my parents kind of like projected onto me this desire to be a doctor. They named
yeah.
me after some doctor, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
I couldn't be farther away from wanting to be one because that's just not my life calling. I would probably be a dead person in a hospital still walking, but completely dead at a soul level, because
Yeah,
that's just
right.
not who I am. But I can identify with what you're saying because, yes, they did have that projected desire, but then they never really pushed for it.
Right.
They were always so open minded to let me explore and just go and figure out, like, what do you want to do and
Mhm.
see what works out and see what doesn't. And
Yeah.
I feel like there's freedom in that. And I try
Mhm.
to think of that with my own kids. Yeah, sure, I have dreams for them. I want them to become this or that, but try to step back and not project onto them things that you didn't get to do in your life and now you're trying to live through
Right.
them.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's like, no, we need to let them be kids. And and I don't have kids, but I'm totally like nephews, and I'm just like, oh, cool. Like, oh, you want to play this video game? Cool, let's play. Like, it's not like, oh my God, you're playing too many video games, and they don't play that many video games. That's a bad example, but like, whatever they want to do, they're kids, right? And I think that us as adults, we need to let them be that way, and that's
Yeah.
a whole nother topic, I'm
No,
sure.
absolutely. But you bring such a big point there. And it's a reminder for myself because I have kids. I have to remind myself that
Yeah.
constantly. Like, let them be kids. And even
Mhm,
if, like, oh, we have homework, we have all those things we need to do, but let them be
mhm,
kids.
mhm,
Now, as a female leader and entrepreneur, 2020 in so many ways, even if professionally was a good year for many of us, personally, I feel like it's a completely different conversation. If you
mhm.
didn't grow through 2020, you didn't do it right.
Right, right. Yeah.
So I guess my question to you is then, what was maybe some significant obstacle or barrier that you
Mhm,
felt like you overcame? And that can be professionally or
mhm.
personally. Take it as far as you want to.
Okay. Oh, you gave me the permission. I'm gonna go
Yes.
there. Yes. This is one of the things that I had at the end of 2019. I was in a really dark place, and it wasn't because of my business. I had just landed a really good client. Like, I felt the good vibe, but the thing that I pitched, I had just started pitching my services at a higher rate, and they accepted it. And I was like, yes, cool, like awesome, landed that client. And then I went into a spiral of not feeling worthy of that, right? And it was around money, right? And it was because I felt before, when I was struggling through all of this, trying to find my way, I'm good. when I'm struggling, right? Like as long as I'm the next day, like, okay, like my bank account doesn't really reflect this and whatever. And then I also feel in a tech space or like marketing online space, like there is that thing about like women don't really talk about money. It's normal for men to talk about, oh yeah, like ask for the money, ask for the sale, like it's all good. And we're being salespeople as well as marketers, producers, graphic design, whatever we're doing, right? We're doing all of that. Plus we're also being salespeople. So that was one of the big barriers that I had at the end of 2019. And then throughout 2020, I started changing this mindset around deserving of the money, deserving of abundance, and hopefully attracting that into my life, but also attracting it with the people around me. Like, I don't want to like, well, I'm going to take money from you and then you're not going to win the business or whatever. And it was just like all of it, like we touched about before, this scarcity mindset was something I was trying to rid myself of. So yeah, the money thing, I still work through it. It's definitely not as prevalent as was previously, but I've been doing this for about on my own about 6 years. And it wasn't until like maybe 4.5 years in that I realized how much of a barrier that was holding me back from just even just getting on a video, right? Like talking about it. I would never talk about it. Like in 20, even early 2020, it's like, oh no. And that's definitely something, because it was more time where I had to like not really see people and I had to work through my issues virtually and talk to people, really be there for those deep conversations with your friends that you couldn't hug or couldn't see or couldn't travel to. Like I'm in San Diego, but I have a lot of good friends, like not just in San Diego. So it's like, I can't even go see you. So you're opening up. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, it was definitely the barrier around the money thing, because like we said in the beginning, a lot of people were struggling. So how can I talk about money or even say, oh yeah, I just landed this new event or this new client? And it's like, oh, but like this person just said they're losing a job or they don't have clients. It's hard to balance that sometimes.
And I think it's certainly a conversation, a hard conversation to have. And it's hard, especially because, at least for me and the culture I come from, we don't talk about money. We just try to make money, but we don't talk about money. And the way you show that you make money is by the appearances of things. And I've always been against that idea. Like, just because I happen to land this job or happen to make this amount of money doesn't mean I'm going to go out and buy the most expensive car just to show off that I'm doing so good. But I come from a culture that's sort of like the upbringing I had. So I had to go through my own work to do or undo some of the things that I was like, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's not a way of showing to other people like what I am worth or not. It's more than that. I know this is a value I bring to the table and I'm worth this value. So that's why I charge this amount. I think sometimes we as women, we can fall so easily into this imposter like syndrome type of situation where we think like we're so not worth it because there's so many other people that could do a better job. When the reality is that a woman would sometimes go into a situation only if she knows 100% that she's capable, where a man can walk into a situation when having 25% of the information and the rest would be like, oh, I'll figure it out, right? But we check all the boxes before we even go there, right? And that's not necessarily always working out advantage.
No, it's totally, I'm not trying to like downplay men in this industry because they've been a valuable resource to learn too, but it's definitely something that's really prevalent, because I talk to my peers that are not necessarily in events, but they have the same kind of barriers as female entrepreneurs, business owners, whatever, trying to build your business. It's like, do I deserve this? Am I worth this amount? If I give them this price, like, and it's weird because we have to do this as part of our business and grow, but like women associate, oh, this dollar amount is how much I'm worth, which is
not true.
Really heavy. Like when you think about it in history, right? Like you're hiring me for this amount, like that could totally go other places. But these are ingrained for generations in us.
Absolutely. And I think like it's like you said, like this is not to necessarily to put anyone down, but it's like for us as a reminder as women to be encouraged to have those conversations and be open-minded to even go to our fellow fellow partners in the industry. And some of my best friends in the industry are male because
Yeah.
unfortunately there isn't a lot of us, right?
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
just sitting down, have a coffee and be able to have this conversation without feeling like you're not deserving or without
Mhm,
feeling like, well, I shouldn't even open my mouth because
mhm,
what are they going to think about it? Men talk
mhm.
about those things in between themselves all the time.
Yeah,
We just need to
exactly.
be open about it and
Mhm,
vulnerable enough to accept that, yeah, sometimes I do feel like this. And sometimes I do feel like I'm not worth it. But I know in the depths of my mind and my heart, I know what I'm capable of. I'm
mhm,
confident in my abilities. Putting a price on that can be difficult. How do you overcome that? And
mhm.
having the conversation could be absolutely the start, at least the
Right.
start, right?
Right. Exactly.
So, as a
Definitely.
female producer, going back to this industry that is predominantly male led,
Mhm,
have you personally, or just someone who maybe experienced any resistance from clients before you got
mhm.
to produce and live stream their events? Whereas, well, you're a girl, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything specific. Maybe I pitch a client and I know someone else might be, or they haven't said, well, how do you know? And also, if they don't want to work with me, cool. Like there's another person, right? But like there are certain things that, I have to work through if I am starting down that road of like a story that I'm creating. Oh, they don't want to work with me because I'm a woman and like it starts with me, right? But I have experienced some just in my circles, like in friend circles or just acquaintance circles, because I'm so focused on doing my work, the producing, but also personal work. I try not to like involve myself in like a lot of online community, like online conversations that don't serve me or don't require me to be there all the time. I manage my time as much as I can, but if I bring up an idea like now with like audio, live audio, like Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, I bring it up and it's like this new thing. A lot of people are still kind of like, oh, what is this? Like, I don't, and us that are kind of in the industry are very plugged into like what's the new trend. And so I think there's a little bit of pushback sometimes when I bring it up because it wasn't known by that person first. So they are hesitant to learn about it because they have not seen it catch on yet in their normal, like in their circles, right? Which I'm not blaming them, but it's also like that's a little bit of it's hard to articulate, I think, in an online space and say, like, no, this is another avenue. Like we can do this live audio as a different type of event, or maybe like a post event or like a leading up to an event, like creating FOMO, which is one of my friends. She's the FOMO creator. Every time I say FOMO, I think of her. It's like, okay, how can we utilize this space to have another touch point?
To
Because
enhance the
yeah,
experience.
and not everyone's gonna look at, maybe they register for your event or maybe they like subscribe to your YouTube and watch your YouTube show, but maybe they're busy that day. So creating these other touch points that require very little like extra knowledge, like if you're in the tech space, you can pick it up pretty easily. But I think it's just resistance to the fact that it's a new idea and people are just hesitant to take on new ideas. And
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's fully the fact that I'm a female suggesting it. I'd like to think that that's not the case, but
I don't think so, but I can totally see where maybe in the same space, if somebody was like coming with a different authority, with a different voice, they might possibly be taken into consideration
Mhm,
faster. I remember when in the days in-person events, I was always leading a team of men. I just happened to be in the management position and I was walking into a room with about 10, 20 guys behind me. And
mhm,
if I didn't meet the client face to face yet, or for some reason I was a different liaison to the client, they would always come and talk. Like they would look at the guys and go and talk to one of the guys. They would never come to talk to me, right?
yeah,
And in the beginning, it bothered me. I'm like, wait a second, I'm the boss here.
yeah, yes,
But then I
yeah,
had to change my mindset. I had to accept the fact that to a lot of people, this concept that there could be a 5'2" little girl leading
mhm,
like a trip, like of 20 guys into a
yeah,
ballroom and transforming, that is just a little bit beyond their capacity of
right,
understanding how that's possible.
mhm,
And it's not personal, like it really
right,
isn't. And then supporting and surrounding myself with the type of support that I needed. So then when when the client came to like say my audio tech or my video tech, they would be, I would love to answer you, but here's the boss.
Right.
And then they
Exactly.
redirect. And
Mhm.
that's when having the conversation, the vulnerable conversation, what I would tell them, hey, I understand that you could have the answer, but it really brings me joy when I see that you respect me enough to actually point the client to me, because I'm the
Mhm.
one that actually signed them. I'm the one that actually has all the answers. And you
Right.
could give them a percentage of what you know, but really you haven't been part of all the pre-event planning meetings and all the other things. But
Mhm.
supporting myself with the kind of guys and the kind of male in tech roles that would
Mhm.
see the value that I bring to the team, and then I see
Mhm.
their value because I would support them right back. That
Right.
has been like a game changer for me, because now I don't have to fight for
Mhm.
authority. I don't have to put myself
Right.
in that place where it's like weird and awkward, and I don't want
Mhm.
to like this is weird, like this power struggle. I don't want to have a power struggle.
Yeah.
Anytime there was a power struggle in a situation, it didn't go well, and I did feel like I had to overpower
Right.
and push myself in places that I wasn't comfortable. But I'm also not going to be stepped on by anyone
Right.
just
Yeah.
because you happen to have a different gender.
Right, exactly. No, I
But
think sorry, I didn't I totally get it's definitely not personal. Like you said that, like that's the one thing I want to pick up from that because
yes,
their reaction is just what they're conditioned to. And I think even during this space, where we're all sitting at home and potentially listening to conversations maybe that we weren't a part of, like different localities, like that is one of the big things. Like I'm even exposed to all of these new things that I was like, wow, I feel like a little baby cub, like opening its eyes, like, oh my God, like I knew there was things going on, but I'm like, I still don't know everything. And like your point earlier, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think that's an opportunity to not take it personal when someone asks your AV tech or someone else that isn't running the show like you, the question, just not take it personal and just stand in your power when need be, and it'll change eventually.
before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifan Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifanevents.com. Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's certainly growth that comes to that we all have to go through.
Mhm.
And like you mentioned, in those conversations that we really haven't been either part of or even, come into that space, just being willing to listen and
Mhm.
learn. That's
Mhm.
really the best thing you can do.
Yes. Yes. Listen. I
Absolutely.
agree.
So before we go into this like a rabbit hole of like we don't know how we're gonna get ourselves back out,
Yes.
here's one question that is a little bit more focused onto the topic of our conversation, which is live streaming. I want to hear from you, some of your lessons learned of like what are some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to live streaming.
Yeah, so thank you for asking and taking us away from that a little bit. No, and I could go on and on about it. Yeah, so the do's and don'ts of live streaming. One of the things I think a lot of people get hung up on is the trying to compare themselves to other live streamers, right? And there's people that have started in live streaming before the lockdown started, before they had to sit behind a computer and learn Zoom. I'm sure you used Zoom before March 2020, just like me. I wish I would have invested in the stock,
Right?
but yeah, that's another story. But yeah, and I think people just start comparing their setup to wanting to hit that go live button. And for me, the do's is always just making sure that you have a good internet connection, a good mic. I think that's your main purchase that you need, because sound is everything. You can repurpose it if you have like, sometimes there's like the lawnmower. Okay, fine. Like you can get by with that. But like the good mic is super important, and lighting. Like I'm sitting in in the middle of my office right now because I switched my desk around so I could face the window. Otherwise, it would have been completely dark and you wouldn't, it would be weird. There'd be light behind me, which is not good for live streaming, right? And you and I both have like a background, right? So like I created this with like frames and like things from Home Goods and stuff because even though I'm not always on a live stream because I do sporadic live shows because I'm more producing, I think it does help when I'm getting a live, like a production or a Zoom, like to pitch my services, that it shows that I have a good setup and a core. Like I don't have like a fancy camera. It's a nice webcam, nice audio microphone, and make sure I have head and good lighting because I think that's really important with when we're at home it's cloudy right now, but like if it was sunny, I think it would look just fine too. But it's really important, I think, when we're going live. And I think this goes back to like the male like thing. And I think a lot of men just love gadgets, right? And that's great. But it can be intimidating when it comes to if you're looking at other people's streams and they have this cool setup, but like I'm doing it basically, I have a light right here, like a little desk lamp, right? So it does light up my face a little bit more. But it's, if I took a picture and showed you, it'd be like, okay, this is just someone sitting behind their desk with good lighting and a good mic. And it doesn't have to be that intense. And you can upgrade. Like I've upgraded over time because changed my stuff, but I don't think that's one of the basic ones. And a don't is don't have a bed behind you with an unmade bed because I know that we are like in this like weird world of still, some people are still working from home or taking live streams, but like, especially if you're doing it for your professional brand, like it does really not look that great. It's distracting, right? And I'm sure people might be watching this live stream and like they're looking at like the sign behind me, maybe some pictures. It's great, but it's not a distracting bed, unmade bed. And I think that's one huge don't for your live stream because it definitely gives a different perception now.
Or I was doing I was producing I think I've shared this story before, but it's still worth sharing. So I was producing a conference and I had some really high level executives and doctors and architects, and they're all keynote speakers, but they're all coming from their home setup where in the past they haven't had to do it before. So you do your pre-event tech checks and making sure that their environment looks clean and their internet and the microphone and the lighting is good. And talking about lighting, like I just changed my lighting and the color temperature looks a little off, and I'm like, it really drives me nuts, but I'm like, I don't have time before our recording right now. People that are listening to this podcast, it's like, don't worry about it. But this is also going to go on video. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I did not get a chance to actually adjust it. And I feel like I'm a little just too 10 for what I know my regular color is, So going back to the story. So I had this doctor, he had a great keynote, but literally his setup was in the middle of the kitchen. I kid you not. Like he was behind him was the whole kitchen with the pots and the pans and his wife cooking and banging those pans and while he's doing the keynote. And I'm like, at this point, like, it's not like we didn't have the conversation and it's not like we didn't talk about each step and everything. Like, you just put your hands in the air. You're like, I don't know what to tell you. This is as real as it gets. And we should just wait and see what's cooking in the background because at this point, what else are you going to do?
What's for dinner, right? Is this a cooking show? Keynote? I don't know.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. It's like, is this supposed to be some metaphorical representation of what he's talking about? But you bring a huge point there, like that idea that you don't have to have all the gadgets to produce some great content. And I remember, like, I started streaming with, like you said, like one little lamp and my camera. And I had none of the things that right now, they're all over me at the point where I need to think about, maybe I need to, I've outgrown my office, literally.
Yeah, right.
Think about a different space at this point. You can start with what you have. Don't let that to be the obstacle to create, or let that be the obstacle to produce whatever it is that you can contribute to this world. And if you're going to do it well, but don't let that be the stopper to even get in front of people with the ideas that you have. And that could be something that it's helpful to someone that you don't even know the impact you're going to have. And you're just thinking about like me, my lighting right now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, it's I'm a very the KISS method. Keep it short and simple, right? And I think it's one of the things I think imposter syndrome and seeing all these people streaming like, "Oh my God, I'm never going to be able to be that person that has the perfect looking stream." But
Yeah.
I'm it's always going to be a journey, I say. You might want to start right away and start getting your content out there, do what you need to do, and then upgrade as you go.
Yeah. And I heard a really good point someone made. I'm not sure it was like someone that was speaking to some conference that I recently attended or somebody I recorded. I don't remember anymore, but it's all a blur. But they were saying if you need to record yourself and go live to an unlisted location on YouTube
Yes.
and just do this like 10 times, 20 times, whatever, how many
Mhm.
times it takes until you get the hang of it, do it. Like,
Yes.
what's stopping you, right? So
Mhm.
to bring a product that is polished and it has a high production value, it does take practice. But if you never start with the first stream, how do you think you're going to get to the
Right.
100th stream?
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the also things, and I don't know if you might adopt this strategy, but like when I started doing video, I was doing like selfie video. This was like a couple of years ago when I started getting out in front of people and just connecting in that way. I recorded videos, but then I posted them, like I made them, branded them, and whatever. And then I posted them and I didn't look at them because I knew that it was done. I knew that I was planning, what I was going to talk about. And then I tried to do as much energy as possible. And then I posted it and I moved on because
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be something that was holding me back of never doing it again. Because if I've seen my video, we always have the videos like that pop up. You're like, oh, wait, I didn't remember that one. Or that's not what I maybe should have worn something differently. But that's all like a story that I'm creating in my head. And then I would get messages from other women or people like, oh, you're so good on camera. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm just like doing the thing because I know that I need to get over that hump. Right. And now it's
Absolutely.
just like then lockdowns happened and it was like I never had any hesitation with getting on
Yeah.
camera. And I now do voice calls. Like, I actually pick up the phone sometimes now, which is kind of weird. I'm like regressing backwards, but it's video, right? So like I can't, or when I'm streaming,
Yeah.
I can't avoid that. But
But I totally love that idea. I remember actually doing that, having that strategy in the beginning when I was first producing the first few podcast episodes. And
Mhm.
I would never go back and re listen to what I recorded. To this day, I haven't listened to my first maybe 5 or 10 episodes
Good
because
strategy. Say yeah.
I know if I go and listen now, I would want to take it down with such a speed.
Right? No
But
way.
it's part of the story. Like
Mhm.
that's part of the history of like whatever you're doing, like how this podcast started. And yes, I sounded like what was my son's comment? It's like, you sound like an automated machine. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Don't they have apps for
Compliment.
that now? Yeah.
I know. But I really won't go and listen back because I
Yeah.
know I would take it down because I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I can't believe that that was
Mhm.
actually me saying. And I agree, if that's something that in your mind you have that type of a stopper to create more just because you go back. A lot of us are very self-critical, more than anyone
Mhm.
else. We
Yeah.
have that self-critic in our head. And if you're that type of person, then it's better not to go back and look at it. Not that you shouldn't improve, absolutely.
Right.
But I feel like if you're putting effort day in and day out, you definitely will excel in time. Like if you're
Mhm.
plateauing, then we're having a different conversation. We need to look at
Right.
other things, right? But
Mhm.
if you're really putting effort into wanting to get better and be excellent at what you do, you will grow in time. It's just
Mhm.
not going to happen the first time around, right? So I
Right.
guess going to this strategy of like foolproof streaming strategy, we should adopt when we're streaming either for ourselves or for our clients. Do you have something like that you employ for your streams or for your own
Mhm.
clients?
Yeah, I think, there's three principles that I always think about when I'm doing a stream, and that's, definitely my where I love to do is like preparation and planning. And that's like, just mapping out the show. Like an example, you sent me questions and sure we've gone off a little bit, but it's like it's good for me as a guest to know where you like to take this conversation. And whether it's an outline or like a run of show or something that can really kind of give you, even yourself, if you're just solo streaming, give you a framework of where to go so that you don't get lost or you don't get scared by the fact that you're live or there's only 2 people watching or whatever. You're just kind of like just focus on what you have chosen to deliver to the audience. Even if it's no one there, you still, they could look at it later. It doesn't matter. It does help to be prepared. And I also make sure that it doesn't look boring. Like I feel like when and luckily we're able to use like a really cool tool for this video part, but like, if you're listening, go look and watch the video because it'll
It
be
looks
different.
good.
Yeah. You can see our backgrounds that we talked about, right? But I think, I'm used to seeing like the 2 faces side by side with the black bars on the top and the bottom and Zoom basically videos. And it's so boring to me because I'm like scrolling, and I'm like seeing all this video. Cool. It's not catching my attention. And I think the visual aspect doesn't need to be so highly produced. There's so many tools that you can utilize. And maybe that's not your forte. So maybe you work with someone like yourself or me or a producer, that would help you with that. But like, you don't have to think about it in the sense that this is, if you're doing it for yourself, this is not like a video production studio. You can make it your own without spending thousands of dollars, but just a little bit of attention.
Yeah.
And then, I think the most important part with those 2 things, if you got those 2 things, is like the presence that you deliver on camera. Whether you have a guest or you're doing it yourself, like if you're doing those 2 things, you're prepared, you're confident, you don't have to think about what you might flub, what if there's a mistake, if you don't say anything, it doesn't matter because you've done all the preparation for your live stream. So, I think a lot, they do say, okay, just go ahead and go live. Like it's not a big deal. But I think also you have to understand that like you can do that, but it does look better for you as a whole in the long term if you do some preparation and make it visually pleasing. And you can be
Absolutely.
present. So
Yeah. And it's the reason why, like, even for any show whatsoever, you do have a rehearsal time, you do have a tech run through time, you put some effort to make sure that the final product is, even if it's as freely flowing as it has to be, because
Mhm.
this is a more of a free flowing and let's see where the conversation takes us. But having a little bit of like boundaries around that is, like you said, it creates that framework that it's easier to operate, within
Mhm.
and not going all over the place. And I love that advice. I think it's really good advice.
Thank
Now,
you.
I have one more question that I want to touch on as we're coming to time here. And it's very important because right before we were starting to stream this, we were talking about that work-life balance and how
Mhm.
important it is, especially now where we're all working from home and we're
Mhm.
all putting in maybe more hours than we have before. Because personally, I know it's hard for me to disconnect from work. It's hard for me
Mhm.
to just go to the kitchen and get lunch sometimes. I'll
Right.
just be here for hours. So how do you balance work and life, and how do you
Yeah.
keep yourself healthy mentally and physically?
Well, thank you for asking this question. It's so important for me, and I'm an advocate for the proper balance. And, one of it is having the confidence to stand in your power of what you do, whether you're a live streamer, if you're a producer, if you're an event manager, whatever you are, having the confidence that you can have a life outside of being behind the camera. Maybe it doesn't fit with your client's schedule, but like if you're not giving yourself that permission to live a life as well as do work, then nothing you do is going to ever work because you're basically saying like I don't deserve a balance, right? So that's one thing that first you have to believe it, and then coming up with, if you think about it, like this whole like entrepreneur, like working for yourself lifestyle has always been around, well, I can work anytime, which is great. I work with people in the UK sometimes, and I'm on the West Coast, so that's 8 hours, 9 hour difference. So it can be different, but you have to set the boundaries what you're comfortable with, and give yourself permission to turn it off. I think it's, that's one of the things that, people are like, well, your schedule doesn't allow for a 9 o'clock stream. I'm like, I cannot do a stream at 9 o'clock because I'm up at 5 a.m. and I'm in front of my computer. I'm tired laying down at 9 o'clock, like, I mean, maybe I'll work on something on my phone, or I'll do like an audio, maybe I'll call you, but I'm not going to like be sitting at my computer for 12 hours. Right. So,
Yeah.
one of the things that actually have helped me with this whole balance is meditation, because meditation has really allowed me to stay in the present. It was hard for me to, get into the rhythm, but even during 2020, I did 180 days straight of meditation.
Wow.
And it was like amazing. Like, it was like, I need to do it now, and building in routines that you would if you had a 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or 12 to 8, whatever it is, right? Building in routines and giving yourself permission to do that, because you are a business owner. You're not just like someone who's providing a service for whenever,
Yeah.
I mean, you could, that might be your business, but also then, you have to create the boundaries, and it starts with you. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't start my day without having some quiet time for myself in the mornings, to start with that quiet time of centering myself and being grateful for what I have and finding the reasons why am I doing this in the first place. Otherwise, I feel like I'm kind of like at the mercy of everything that comes by, and I'm just tuning into those emotions, and then just nothing works anymore because I'm like all over the place, and that's
right.
not good. Like, it's not healthy for me mentally, and then it affects my relationships too. So
Right.
don't do it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely
whatever works for you. Like, is that going for a walk? Is that going for a run? Is that going to the gym? Is that meditating? Is that sleeping in? I don't know. Who knows? Like taking a nap?
Yeah. I think we've forgotten those things during the lockdown, and maybe not now because, things are starting to open up, and people are adjusting. But in the beginning, it was like, oh, we're all at home. Look, we can all be in front of our computer and watch streaming and Netflix and chill, and not go back to what we did was connect with people, right? If you remember in the beginning of the lockdowns, like, people were so like starving for connection, I think. So like a walk in the neighborhood, and like you were like, oh my God, hi. But like, we've forgotten that. We've gotten so used to being at home, or like not having events to go to in person, or like even networking events, or coffee with your friend. Really, if you can do it now, at least here we can in California, things are starting to open up. But we forget that humans crave connection. As much as you're an introvert, I'm an introvert. I don't know what you are specifically, but like, people are like, no, you're not an introvert. I'm like, yes, I am. I love the lights off and laying in my bed and not connecting with anyone.
I like to call myself an ambivert.
Yes.
I'm totally like super outgoing, but then I hit my moment where I'm like, okay, I've had enough. I can only do so much like social interactions. I need my quiet time right now. I need to be by myself. And it's good to know that being by yourself, it's okay. It's good to not feel scared when you're by yourself, because some people can certainly fall into the category of like, I don't want to ever be by myself because I'm like so, scared what that might look like, and you surround yourself with so much noise. I actually love the quiet time. I can just, like you said, going back to that meditation practice of just being you and your thoughts. You'd be surprised actually that you might actually have some good thoughts if you let them surface, So, Marisa, I feel like I could go on and on about this because there's so much to be talked about, and like having good attitude and working from that abundance mindset that we touched on, and the practices of not feeling like you're not deserving of the value that you are bringing into the world. And even like this healthy practices to keep you mentally grounded. There's so much to be talked about. But because we are coming sort of to time, what I would love to really bring us back to is for anyone that wants to engage with you, maybe ask you questions like, hey, tell me more about this meditation practice that you've talked about. Sure. How do they connect with you? Where are you found on social?
Yeah. So if you want to talk about anything, I am willing to give out my phone number, which is 619-880-7778. Text me first. Please don't just bomb my phone, or, I mean, I might not answer right away, leave a voicemail just so I know what you're connecting. But yeah, like if you're looking to connect on social, you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Marisa Cali. I'm sure it'll be in the notes. I think I'm the only Marisa Cali right now on LinkedIn, but there might be a new one. There was one a couple years ago, and she was in digital marketing, which was really odd. I was like, wow, I have a twin.
That is funny. I know. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of Anca fans, especially with my Romanian heritage. I can run into all kinds of Ancas on LinkedIn. So.
Yes.
And I'll put a ticker here also for your website for anyone
Yes.
that wants to connect with you there.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, I feel like we touch on so many good things, good, valuable information there. Thank you so much, Marisa, for making time for having this conversation, joining me today. And I wish you all the best with all the growing that you're doing. And I know I'm still doing myself and all the awesome things that you're working on currently.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and it was fun to chat.
Same. Thank you.